Hi, I'm Kelly with citruscycles.ca. I'm here with the Bulls Cross E. It's a versatile e-bike available in 3 different frame styles. As you can see, we've got the regular diamond frame. We have what they call a step through. I would call that a low step. And then we have what they call a wave, and that's a true step through. You can walk right through the middle there. It's a versatile bike that you could use for commuting, running errands, riding around town, trekking, but also touring, because we have the Bosch Active Line Mid-Drive, which is an incredibly efficient drive unit, and the Bosch PowerPack 500, which is going to give you tremendous range. It's also a great value. You can find the current pricing, you can order online and find the detailed specs on our website at citruscycles.ca. There you'll find our contact information, so if you have questions or you'd like to schedule an appointment to come try it for yourself, you can find all that on our website at citruscycles.ca. I mentioned it was a really good value, and like I said, you can find the current pricing on our website. What makes it such a great value is it includes everything you need. So you've got built-in lights, you've got the fenders, you've got the rack, you have a frame lock, along with the cable lock, and it even includes a handy pump. So really it's got everything that you could possibly need to help you ride in all seasons and have a lot of fun doing so. So I'll go through the detailed specs of the bike, and I'm also going to take you on a ride test as well. As I mentioned, you do have multiple sizes as well as the multiple frame styles. So with the regular diamond frame here, you're getting a bike that's very stiff, and you can ride very aggressively if you wish. If you're looking for something that's a little bit easier to get on and off of, especially when you're stopping, then you could take a look at the step through. Depending on how high you can lift your knees, I find a lot of people can't actually step right through it, even though they call it a step through. Really, you're probably still bringing your leg over the back, but when you're stopping and starting and you're staying on the bike, then this makes it a lot easier to do that. If you are looking for a bike where you don't have to lift your leg over the back wheel, then that's where I'd go with the wave frame here, and that's also available in a couple of different sizes. Now with the low step and the diamond frame, you'll notice that you're getting the Bosch PowerPack 500 frame mount battery. So that's mounted on the frame there. With the wave, what I call the step through, but they call the wave, they put the battery on the rear rack, and that's to open up the space in there to make it really easy to get on and off. When you move the battery to the rack, and that still is a 500 watt hour, and it's from Bosch, that can impact the handling of the bike a little bit. So you'll find that with this wave design, and I'll show you on the step through, it's not as stiff as a low step or a diamond frame. So you're just going to want to make sure that when you're riding the bike, you keep your hands on the handlebars. It's not unusual in a step through at certain speeds to have a little bit of wobbling happening in the front because of the lack of stiffness in the frame. As long as you're keeping your hands on the handlebars, that's fine. So we've got those 3 different frame styles, and like I said, different sizes as well. So with the diamond frame here, you'll notice that we've got fairly wide straight handlebars, and when you go with the wave version, you can see that they do a little bit more of a swept back handlebar. They all, of course, have these ergonomic grips, which is great, and they also have an adjustable stem. So just make sure if you adjust that, you get that nice and tight with your Allen key. But you can see you've got a fair number of adjustments you can make to make the bike really comfortable for you. Speaking of comfort, we do have a quick release on the seat post as well, so you can adjust the height as you wish. And this is, I think it's a Selle Royale freeway saddle, so it's got a fair bit of gel and cushion in there, which is quite nice. On a bike like this, we do have, for comfort, the NEX Sun Tour suspension fork, which is great to have. I love having a suspension fork on a bike. Not only does it make the bike a little bit more comfortable, it also keeps you safer because you're not necessarily swerving to avoid potholes or broken pavement or slowing down, which can make you unsafe in traffic. You can just kind of keep on going. So to that end, if it were me getting this bike, I would probably add a suspension seat post as well. It's not necessary, but it just makes it really comfortable, and we've got lots of different options for that as well. It's an easy change to make. For pedals, speaking of comfort and touch points, these are actually some nice Welgo pedals. They have a little bit of kind of a grip here on the pedals, but it is rubber, so it's unlikely to injure yourself like you might get with metal pins. But at the same time, it's going to help keep your feet on the pedals, especially during rain, so that you're not sliding off. Speaking of rain, we do have a full-length chain guard here, so if your chain gets wet and you have some oil on it, you don't have to worry about your pants getting dirty or getting caught in the chain. So that's really nice. Nice long full-length chain guard here, completely covering the chain, which is great. We do have these plastic fenders here as well, with a couple of fender stays here to keep it from wobbling around too much, and full coverage fenders on the back as well, which is nice. We've even got a little flap there, again making it a really versatile bike you can ride all the time. You could also ride at night, of course, because we do have integrated lights that are running off of your main battery. So if I turn the bike on with the power key at the top here, we do have the Purion display, and I'll try to remember to show you that feature in a moment. And if I press and hold the plus button, that should turn my lights on. You can now see the indicator for the lights there. And if we come around the front, you can see we've got the front light and the back light here, with the reflector built in, nice bright LED, and some side visibility there as well. Okay, and so on the front light here you can see a little bit of side visibility, and we also have a reflector built in. To keep you safe at night on the side as well, the tires have reflective striping here, which is very bright when it's illuminated at night, so another nice feature. And the lights are running off of your main battery, so if you forget and leave them on, the bike will turn itself off after about 5 minutes, and the lights will turn off as well. So they're built in, you don't have to worry about bringing them along, you don't have to worry about charging them up, which is nice. So there are really a lot of very handy features that come with the bike, including a frame lock here. So this is a lock that it will pass a metal bar. I'll see if I can show you on the video here. There we go, see the metal bar coming through the rear wheel, and that prevents the bike from being ridden, because of course your wheel is prevented from moving. The cool thing is this key is the same key you use to remove the battery from the frame, and they also give you this really handy cable lock. Now cable locks, of course, aren't the most secure. This one's fairly thick, but they can be cut. So you can actually, if you prefer, we've got a chain that you can use instead. But the neat thing is, even with that chain, it just plugs into the side port here of the frame lock. And that way you don't need an additional key or combination, because it's using the same key as for the frame lock and for the battery. So that's a really handy feature as well. Speaking of handy features, we do have this rack here. It's a Carry-More compatible rack. We've got a 25 kilo maximum rating. It has a spring here as well to clamp things on, and you've got a bar up here and down here that you can use to put panniers on, and a blocker as well, so that whatever you're hanging on the side of the bike doesn't hit the spokes while you're riding. So that's a nice handy feature. And I mentioned we've got this pump. So this is actually comes with the bike. This is really cool actually. It's kind of held in place there by the pressure from the pump. So if I basically, you can see there's a little knob at the top there, and I would just squeeze down and it comes out, and to put it in, just squeeze it down, put it back. So that's really handy that it's got the pump, especially so since these tires do use the fairly rare Dunlop valve system rather than a Presta or Schrader. Fortunately, I believe you can use a Presta pump, or the pump, of course, that comes with the bike, or a Presta Schrader adapter if you wish to. And when you loosen this off, of course, some of the air will escape, and then you can put your pump there and pump it up. So I'm glad that they give you that pump. And these tires are the Continental E-Contact, which is an e-bike specific tire with a high degree of puncture resistance, and a little bit of a thicker tire, because on an e-bike you'll probably ride more frequently, more often, longer distances, and so it's nice to have that. They are a moderately wide tire, not super wide like we're starting to see on more and more kind of trekking style bikes, but they're suitable for hard packed gravel and rain. We've got some siping here as well. But if you're planning on doing a lot of off-road riding, then perhaps a bike with wider tires and maybe an air fork instead of a spring fork might be a good idea. Of course, that's definitely going to, I'll just turn the light off there, that's definitely going to add to the cost of the bike. And that's one of the great things about this bike, is the value given the price and the quality of the components. So up front here we do have a quick release for the front wheel, and you can see the nice big rotor here for the hydraulic disc brakes. And they are hydraulic brakes, which is really good on an e-bike. That means that you're not relying on the strength of your hands to stop the bike. You can simply pull the brake lever here, and the hydraulic fluid is doing all of the work for you. So there's lots of modulation in here, and really very easy to stop the bike even at high speeds with heavy weight. And so those are the Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, which are a good quality brake. And while I'm up here at the front, we've got an 8-speed gear shifter here. This is the Shimano, and I think our drivetrain is the Shimano Alivio. That's an 8-speed. We've got a fairly big hill climbing cog there, but the Alivio is kind of, again, more of an entry level. It's not quite, Shimano's Tourney or the bottom end, a little bit further up, but it's not a, mid-tier, high-tier component. Again, for the price of the bike, that's one of the choices they made, is to go with a more entry-level shifter, but it seems to work quite well. In my ride test, I didn't have any problems with the shifting, but definitely, I ride some bikes with higher spec, and I do notice a difference for myself. You could certainly come try it and see if you notice a difference, or if that difference is worth the price difference for you. Because again, this is a really value-focused bike, and yet they're still using quality name brand components, just kind of more on the lower end of the quality scale in terms of performance. I guess the quality is still really good, just the performance isn't quite the same as what you'd pay with a much more expensive bike. Speaking of value and how they kind of made this bike hit that price point, I'm really surprised that you get the Power Pack 500 from Bosch. That's great, because that's Bosch's most powerful or most highest capacity battery. Previously, the highest capacity was a Power Pack 400, and so the 500 gives you 25% more range. The cool thing that Bosch did is when they came out with this 500, they made it backwards compatible and interchangeable. So if you bought a Bosch bike a few years ago and it came with a Power Pack 400, you can come into our shop here, buy a 500 watt-hour battery, put it on your bike, and right away it'll work. So that's really great to see. Bosch has that forward thinking that really makes sure that you'll be able to keep riding your bike well into the future. So the battery can be removed from the frame. The same key as you use for the lock just unlocks it there, and then you can charge it off the bike. Or if you wish, there's a charging flap here at the bottom that you can open up and plug in the charger there and charge it on the bike. So the choice is yours, which is nice. You have that versatility. You don't need any sort of dongle or anything. You can just plug the charger in either on the bike or the battery. It is the same charger. And as I mentioned, on the Wave here, we do have the battery mounted on the rear rack. So driving the system, providing power, of course, is our Bosch Power Pack, and driving the system is Bosch's Active Line. So Bosch has 3 levels of drive units. They've got the Active Line, the Performance Line, and the Performance Line CX. The Active Line is the most efficient, so it doesn't provide as much torque. I think we're looking at, in this case, 50 Newton meters of torque, nor as much assistance as the Performance Line or as the CX, but that also means it uses less power, and so gives you a tremendous range. And that's one of the reasons why people will go with the Active Line, is partly to save money and partly to get more range. Now, you still get lots of assistance for hills. You just won't be going up them as fast as you would with the Performance Line or the CX line. So for myself, living here in Ladysmith, liking to move along very quickly, I always choose a bike with the CX because I like having that extra torque, and torque is what you need for going up the hills. Now, speaking of hills, because this is a mid-drive, that means the motor is driving the chain. It's turning the chain, and so that means when you change gears, that's actually taking advantage of the mechanical advantage you have when you change gears on the bike. So if you had a rear hub motor in the back here, that would be turning the wheel. When you change gears, it has no effect on the motor because the motor's turning the wheel, not the chain. But with the Bosch system, it's turning the chain. So that means you've got now 9 speeds that are available to the motor. So when you choose one of your first gear for climbing a really steep hill, that also impacts on the motor, and so it makes it a lot easier for the motor to get you up the hill. So it's nice having the Bosch system to get the weight in the middle, to have that mechanical advantage of your gearing, and also the Bosch reliability. You know, they're super reliable. They've got service centers in Toronto and Vancouver. Most bike shops have had their training on how to do diagnostics and work with the Bosch system. They've got a great warranty. They have stock on all their parts. So I really like going with the Bosch system. It's quite a nice system, very responsive. It's actually measuring your torque, that is how hard you're pedaling, your cadence, that is how quickly your legs are moving, and the speed of the bike. You can see we've got a speed sensor back there, 1,000 times per second. So it's basically reading your mind. And so when you come up here to the Purion display, which is a nice compact display, the buttons are integrated into the display. It's not removable, so you don't have to worry about forgetting it on the bike and somebody walking off with it, and also fairly compact. You can choose your levels of assistance. So we can choose from off, eco, tour, sport, or all the way up to turbo. In all of those cases, it knows how hard you're pedaling and then provides the assistance accordingly. That makes it really safe. So if you need to ease off when you're pedaling on a rough section of road or on a trail to get around a tricky corner, it's not going to give you unexpected surges of power. That's the really nice thing about the Bosch system, and the active line especially. It's really smooth, very subtle in terms of the power. Of course, if you get it up to turbo, you can get quite a boost, but a lot of people ride on tour or sport, and that also gives you tremendous range. You can see on the display here, we also have our current speed, and there's a trip computer here, and the current battery charge. So you can see my battery is really low right now on this bike. So I've got the plus and minus, of course, to change the levels of assistance. I can press and hold the plus, as I already indicated, to turn the light on and off. And if I press and hold the minus button, it cycles through some information. So it tells me the total distance on the bike. It tells me the range that remains. And that's a fantastic thing. Of course, there's very little charge left in the battery. See if I've got another, if any of these other bikes have so we've got 4 out of 5 on that one. Let me check on the Wave here. And the range is calculated dynamically based on exactly how much power is left in the battery. So in this case, we've got 5 bars. So it's somewhere above 80%. It calculates not only the range based on how much power is left in the battery, but also the last 4 or 5 kilometers that you've ridden. So right now, because the assistance is off, it's not calculating a range. If I put it up to eco, it's saying, okay, you've got 101 kilometers that you can go on this bike based on the last 4 or 5 kilometers that you've been. Now, I would actually suggest that if I reset that by pressing and holding the plus and minus, see if that actually will reset our, I don't think it'll reset the range calculator on this Intuvia display. Let's give that a try. Put it up to eco, or sorry, this is the Purion display, not the Intuvia display. You can do that on the Intuvia display. Yes, we're still looking at 101. If I go up to tour, then it's saying you've got about, go back to the range estimator here, pressing and holding minus, 56. Sport, I've got 44, and turbo, I've got 40 kilometers left. So it's really handy having that range calculator. You don't have to have range anxiety or worry how much further you can go. You're going to be able to see that at any time on the display just by pressing and holding the minus key, and that'll cycle through the various information. Unlike the Intuvia display, like I said, it's not removable. There is a USB port on the side here, but it's only for diagnostics. You can't charge a USB device. This also doesn't have a clock or any thing related to time, such as your maximum speed or average speed. That's only available on the Intuvia display, which is a more expensive solution, and we can replace it. If you really like that, wanted to use the Kobe system, for example, that's spelled C-O-B-I. I have a video review of it on our website. It allows you to use your phone, actually, instead of the display on the bike. If you want to do that, we can actually replace this with the Intuvia display. But one of the nice things about this, nice and big, easy to read, all built in, you don't have to worry about it, and it frees up the space in the handlebars here. So if you wanted to put your own phone mount or a bag, handlebar bag or something like that, you can do that. And so that's a nice thing about the Purion display. Speaking of space in the handlebars, we do have a bell. Also comes with the bike. So again, you know, super feature rich. We've got a visual display for your gearing, so you know what gear you're in. And really a lot of nice features. On the diamond frame, we have water bottle mounts here. On the step through, we have it here. And on the diamond frame, there aren't, or sorry, on the wave frame, there aren't any, and that's not unusual. Fortunately, we have lots of options for putting water bottles, cages on your handlebars or on your stem, or on the rear rack. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed. We do have, I should mention, we do have a lockout on the front fork here. Sometimes people ask about that. You know, if I have a suspension fork, generally I just ride with it open. I'm not too concerned about losing too much of my energy through the suspension fork because I've got the assistance from the motor and a really large battery. And I might as well have a more comfortable, safe ride. But if you wish to lock that out, you certainly can. So lots of great features to keep you safe, comfortable. You're not going to have to add a whole lot to these bikes because they give you everything that you need. Great value. I'm going to take you on a ride test. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you'd like to come try it out for yourself, you can find all of our contact information on our website at citruscycles.ca. So I'm riding the Wave frame. Of course, we've got the 3 different frame styles available, and this is the size 50. And I notice with these swept back bars here, I've got it is an adjustable stem. I've got that at what, about 30% right now, so you could make it steeper or lower. I would probably, for myself, I find it's actually too upright. It's a very upright bike. A lot of people really like that. Got these swept back bars here which help with that upright riding position. Finding it a little bit tight for my height. I'm about 6 feet. So I would probably just drop the stem a little bit, and that would certainly help. Bring my reach up a little bit there. But otherwise it's you know, a very comfortable riding position. Nice and upright, which is great if you're commuting and just want something that's really comfortable or doing errands. These narrower tires are quite efficient. I do notice a little bit more of the road vibration. We've got a hill. I'm going to have to put it up to sport or even to turbo, change gears. There we go. So I am, like I was saying, I'm used to riding bikes with wider tires, almost sometimes balloon tires, and those really help absorb a lot of the road vibrations. So I'm getting a little bit more, I mean, it's not bad. If I hadn't ridden a bike with the wider tires, I probably wouldn't notice it, but you know, since I've got a lot of experience on those, I do notice that there's a little bit more vibration because of the narrower tires than on some of the wider balloon tires. Of course, that does make it a little bit more efficient, which is important because we do only have the active line and not the CX. And you know, part of that is a price issue. Obviously, it helps to get the price down to the price point that we're seeing it at, and it also makes sense for the types of riding that you're going to be doing with this bike. If you're doing, you know, long trekking and touring, then it's worth maybe investing a little bit more in something that's going to have you know, top-end components instead of kind of mid-tier. The suspension fork is doing a pretty good job with some of these bumps. It's certainly nice to have it. It does help to smooth things out. So with the active line, I did notice on that first hill there, you know, I did need to put it up to turbo and into an easier gear, and I definitely wasn't proceeding as quickly as I might with the Bosch CX. The CX, of course, is Bosch's top-end drive unit. It's a lot more torque for climbing hills and more assistance in the higher levels. And again, that's a price consideration. If you don't have a lot of big hills or you don't mind going up slowly, you're still going to be able to get up them. It's just not quite giving you as much power. The flip side of that, of course, is you are going to get better range. You know, I think I would be inclined to add a suspension seat post to this bike. Again, I guess I'm kind of spoiled a lot of the bikes I ride do have the suspension seat post and the wider tires, and that really helps smooth things out. If you're not riding, you notice this last section, was a lot of broken pavement and gravel and stuff like that. If you're mostly on asphalt, then you might not even need the suspension seat post. You might be just fine. But certainly it's going to help. The saddle is nice and comfortable. It is a fairly wide saddle. It's got some good padding in it. And of course, the contact points of the bike are always easy to change. Easy to put a different saddle if you want something cushier, or suspension seat post. Change the grips, the pedals, the bars. But for the style of bike, it's quite comfortable. Wow, I notice I'm working harder because I'm used to riding a CX bike and I'm used to maintaining a certain speed. And really the only way I'm going to maintain that speed with this bike is by going into a higher level of assistance. So that's just something I have to get used to. Alright, we've got a long climb here. I'm going to put it onto turbo. We may have to go into some of our easier gears. Okay, and like I said, this is a fairly long, relatively steep hill, and I'm going to start from a standstill just to give you an idea of how well the Bosch Active Line can handle it here. I am into turbo, and so far so good. I'm 12, 13, 14 kilometers an hour, not having to work too hard at it. I am in my easiest gear, of course. I think we've got 9 speeds on the back there. And your first gear is a fairly big climbing gear, so that's handy to have. Again, I'm definitely noticing a difference between the Active Line and the CX. I definitely, can get higher speeds. Much easier to climb the hills with the CX, but of course there's a price difference for that. I'm hoping the GPS is working on the camera. Sometimes have some issues with it. It is a fairly steep hill. Bottom right corner, if the GPS is working correctly, will show you the gradient of the hill. I won't even guess because I know I'll be wrong. But this is definitely steeper than your typical urban hill. And so far, I've been able to maintain above 10 kilometers an hour. Oh, just dropped. But I am having to work at it. I am in the easiest gear. And, if you don't mind the exercise and you rode this hill every day, this is a great bike to consider. If you're in a little bit of a hurry, or you don't have to work so hard at it, and you're riding up and down that hill every day, then maybe consider a bike with a CX. But like I said, on the flip side, not only are you saving money with this bike, but you are definitely going to get more range because it isn't going to use as much battery. So I'll head back down the hill, test the brakes. Another thing that I'm going to test for, and I don't recommend you do this at home, but heading down the hill, I'm going to take my hands off the handlebars just to see if there's any sort of speed wobble. And that's not unusual with a wave frame like this. Sometimes when you get to certain speeds, the frame will vibrate. So I'm going to test for that, but again, don't ride without your hands on the handlebars like this at home. Okay, so far, alright, I'm going to have to slow down. I got a stop sign at the bottom there. Try one more time, but I hit 50 and no issues. Try it again. Oh, there we go. Somewhere between 36 and 38 there, you can see the bars shimming a little bit. And that doesn't have to happen, depending on how they design the frame. Certainly if you look at a bike like the Riesenmuller Nevo, it doesn't have, I've tested it many times, and you're never going to have a speed wobble on it. A bike like this, I'm not surprised that will happen. Now, it didn't happen the first time, it only happened the second time. I'll have to do a bunch more testing to see really at what speed it becomes apparent and if it's consistent or not. Now, that really only happens if you take your hands off the handlebars. Obviously, I don't recommend riding your bike like that. You want to have your hands on the bars at all time, and if you're doing that, then you shouldn't have a problem. Yeah, try it again here. Nothing so far. Try one more time. No problem again there. Still got it in turbo and moving along rather well, but I'll move it back down to tour, which is, you know, where most people are going to ride. Definitely gives you better range that way. Fairly easy to hit that maximum 32 kilometers an hour before the drive unit cuts off. Okay, I was testing it again there with a less steep grade, and you could see a little bit of tendency between that 28 and 30 kilometer an hour to turn into a speed wobble. I'll replicate it here, there we go, on a flat section. So about that 28, 29, somewhere in there, there we go. You can see you get a little bit of wobble. Now, I'll do that again with my hands on the handlebars, down to 28, 29, 30, and it's absolutely fine. I don't feel any vibration, any tendency towards speed wobble or anything, as long as my hands are on the handlebars. So, you know, I've been going on and on and on about the speed wobble issue, and I don't want it to freak you out, and it's really not that big of a deal. I just want you to be aware of it, that you should keep your hands on the handlebars on a bike like this. You would really need to step up to something like, I said, the Nevo from Reese and Mueller, for example. It's a much different frame design. It's still very low step, but they've purposely designed it so you can ride it very aggressively and very sportily. With this particular bike, you're not going to be doing those same kinds of things. You're going to keep your hands on the handlebars, and that will definitely be safe. So that's the Wave from the Cross E. I'm going to switch over now to the Diamond frame, just to give you an idea of how it rides as well. Okay, so now I'm on the Diamond frame. It's interesting, on the Diamond frame the bars are flat. On the low step and the Wave, the bars are actually curved back. So with the Diamond frame, you're still fairly upright. You've got the adjustable stem, so you can adjust that to your liking, but it's a little bit of a wider stance, maybe a little bit more of a sporty type of ride. Okay, and we do have a visual indicator of the gears here, so that's kind of handy. I'm going to pop it up into turbo for the hill, and probably need to shift into one of my easier gears. Might as well go all the way up to 1, and I probably didn't need to go that far because I'm spinning pretty quickly, but you know, as long as you're willing to put it in the right gear, put it in turbo, you can climb the hills no problem. Top of the hill, I'll put it back down into tour, and that's going to extend my battery life. And you can see here with the Diamond frame, there is no speed wobble issue at all. You know, I can go between that 26 and 30 and not have any issues at all. And again, you know, for safety reasons, always have your handlebars, your hands on the handlebars. So hit 40, a little over 40 going down that hill, fairly comfortable. I do like the riding position. I like the little bit of wider bars myself rather than the swept back, but you know, it's just a personal choice. And if you did need to go with the Wave version because of mobility issues, but you didn't like the swept back handlebars, you could certainly change those. Actually, let me take you down another gravel hill here and onto a gravel trail, just so we can test out these tires on gravel. They're ideal on pavement, obviously. The bike is mostly designed for, but it's good to get a sense of how they'll perform on gravel in case you hit some trails. Certainly the narrower tires at higher pressure are going to give you more feedback from the road. And on corners like that where we've got some loose gravel, you know, I instinctively know I need to take it a little bit slower, but I haven't had any problems with the tires yet. So I would say if you're riding on hard packed gravel, a little bit of loose every now and then, these should be fine. And again, you could always upgrade them. If you ride more in wet or mud, then we could change something to a little bit knobbier. And that's something to keep in mind. There's so many things you can change about the bike. You know, it's nice when you don't have to, and certainly it comes with a lot. You got the bell. It's a pleasant sounding bell. I like that. And you know, you've got the fenders and the lights and the rack, the lock, and even the pump. So it's really handy to have all of those things. Get up to sport, and I can get a little bit of a faster speed here. I'd have to look at the ratios, but I think maybe the sport on active line is probably similar to the tour on the CX drive. And I'm definitely more used to riding with the CX drive. But again, there's always trade-offs, price and range, of course. Alright, so it handles, you know, that kind of hard packed gravel really well. No problem with the tires. It is nice having the suspension fork to absorb some of those bumps for us. And there is a dial on here, so we can lock it out or keep it open. I don't know that you'd really need to lock it out at all, because you're not going to lose that much efficiency. And again, you've got the e-bike and you're going to have really good range with this active drive. I guess this is quite literally a rail trail. They still have the rails in the trail. And I'll just try some quick braking here. It's able to lock up the rear wheel a bit, but stopping wise, try that again. Got a lot of response there. Able to stop very quickly, and I'm not really skidding out, especially if I don't lock up that rear tire. Alright, we'll head back up this hill, and that will conclude the ride test. If you have any questions, if I've missed anything in the video, do feel free to reach out to us. You can find our email and phone number on our website at citruscycles.ca, and be happy to answer any questions that you have there. You can certainly set up an appointment to come try it yourself, and if your budget allows, you might want to do some comparisons between some of the different bikes. Certainly this is an amazing value. You get the Bosch quality, the 500 watt-hour battery, which is great. And again, you know, the active line is just fine on these hills. I'm just doing it a little bit slower, or, oh, there we go, now into turbo. Oh yeah, turbo helps a lot. I was just on tour there, I think. There we go. So on moderately steep hills, it's not a problem. It's really on the very steep long ones, that's when you'll notice a difference. And you'll certainly get up it, just maybe not as fast, but you definitely get that increased range. Yeah, so for the price, it's a great value. Rides really well. Happy with the performance. And if you have any questions or if there's anything else you need to know, just head over to our website at citruscycles.ca.